Hi, boys and girls. So we're going to continue on with our The Empty Envelopes book. We're on chapter 5. I'm going to boil some water, Ruth Rose said. My grandfather used to collect stamps. He showed me how to steam them off of envelopes. Ruth Rose ran water into the tea kettle and set the kettle on the burner. Then she turned on the stove. The kids sat and stared at it. Sure is taking a long time to boil, Dink muttered, brushing his fingertips over the sunflower stamps. Suddenly, steam began to whistle out of the kettle pot. Dink handed Ruth Rose an empty envelope. Ruth Rose held the envelopes so the stamps were right over the kettle's spout. In a few seconds, moisture began gathering on the stamps. Then, the stamps began to peel away from the envelope. Cool, Josh said. I feel like a spy. Ruth Rose shut off the stove. Using the tip of a toothpick, she removed the 3 sunflower stamps from the envelope. Hidden beneath the stamps, covered with cellophane, was a smaller stamp. It was blue. In the center of the stamp was a picture of an old-fashioned airplane. The plane was flying upside down. Dink removed the cellophane. It's an old stamp, he said. Josh poked a finger at the stamp. The dumb thing is printed wrong, he muttered. What's the big deal about an upside-down airplane stamp? That's what the upside-down airplane stamp looks like. For the other kids. Ruth Rose studied the stamp. Maybe it's valuable, she said. My grandfather has a stamp that's worth $200. I wonder if Doris Duncan knew this was here, Dink said. The kids looked at each other. Then they stared at the little blue stamp. We should go to the library and look at a book about stamps, Ruth Rose said finally. Dink glanced at the kitchen clock. We better make it fast. Doris Duncan will be back in less than an hour. Dink slipped the stamp inside the empty envelope and stuck all 5 envelopes under his shirt. Okay, let's go, he said. Ruth Rose went to the bottom of the hall stairs. Mom, I'm going to the library, she yelled. They hurried through the living room, out the door, and down Ruth Rose's front sidewalk. As they started up Woody Street, Josh nudged Dink with his elbow. Look. There's some weird guy watching us, he pointed at a dark car parked on the other side of the street. Ruth Rose looked. What guy? They all looked. There was no one in the car. Come on, Dink said. We're running out of time. The kids all ran all the way to the library. When they charged up the front steps, they were out of breath. Mrs. McElroy looked up as they burst through the door. Slow down, kids, she said. Your faces are red as beets. Hi, Mrs. McElroy, Ruth Rose panted. Can you show us a book about stamps? What kind of stamps, Ruth Rose? United States, foreign? We have many books about stamps, dear. Do you have one about stamps with pictures of upside-down airplanes? Dink asked. Mrs. McElroy smiled. You mean inverts? She said. Stamps that are printed upside down by mistake? She walked to a shelf and returned with a big, flat book. You should find your stamp in here, Mrs. McElroy said. Thanks a lot, Dink said. Dink carried the book over to a corner table. He set it down and looked around, then pulled envelopes from inside his shirt. He carefully removed the blue stamp and placed it on the table. There's a zillion upside-down stamps in here, Josh said, rifling through the pages. I want to make sure you guys can see. He said, rifling through the pages. How do we find ours? Try the index, Dink said. Under Jenny. Josh turned to the index in the back of the book. He ran his finger down the J section. No Jenny, he said. Try looking under airplanes, Ruth Rose suggested. Good idea. Josh backed up a few pages to the A's. He found a listing for airplanes and turned to page 329. And there it was, a picture of the little blue stamp. Below the picture was a drawing of an airplane, only bigger. The caption read, Curtis Jenny, single-engine airplane. Hey, Josh said, Jenny's the airplane. Silently, the kids read the paragraph about the stamp. Oh my gosh, Ruth Rose yelled. Mrs. McElroy tapped her pencil on the desk. Ruth Rose, please, she said. Dink picked up the little Jenny stamp. His fingers were shaking. This is worth $50,000, he whispered. One of these days, I'm not going to have it upside down, I promise. Okay, so that was the end of chapter 5. So go ahead and answer the questions in the Google form. Okay? All right. Bye, guys.